Listen to this scary story that will give you nightmares tonight. It all started when my sister and I were kids. We lived in a small town, and there was an old woman who lived in a shack on the outskirts of town. People said she was a witch, and we believed them. She would always wear long, flowing robes, and her face was covered in wrinkles and age spots. Whenever we passed by her house, we'd hold our breath and try not to make a sound. But one day we got a little too close, and she screamed at us to get away. And from that day forward, we never went near her house again. But one day my sister and I were playing in the woods near our house, and we didn't hear our mom calling us for dinner. As we continued to play, the sun began to set and the sky turned a deep, dark blue. Suddenly, we realized we were lost. We started to panic and began to run through the woods, but it was no use. We couldn't find our way out. And soon, we heard the sound of crunching leaves behind us. We turned around and saw a pair of glowing eyes staring at us in the darkness. We screamed and ran faster, but the sound of those crunching leaves never seemed to stop. Finally, we stumbled out of the woods onto a dirt road. In the distance, we saw the familiar lights of our town. We ran towards the lights, and as we did, we heard a voice behind us saying, "Lost children, lost children." The voice was raspy and old, like the voice of the old woman who lived in the shack. When we finally reached our house, we ran inside without even knocking. We told our parents about the terrifying experience we had in the woods, and they told us that it was just a story that the townspeople made up to scare us. But we knew what we had seen and heard, and we never went into the woods again. But then one day, my sister and I were playing in the backyard, and I noticed something strange. The ground was covered in little pebbles, and I started to arrange them into a pattern. My sister joined me, and before we knew it, we had created a large circle on the ground. Then I noticed a small pebble that didn't seem to fit with the others. As I reached down to move it, I saw that it was actually a small, smooth stone. I picked it up and turned it over in my hands, and suddenly, I felt a strange sensation. It was as if the stone were pulsating with energy. I looked up at my sister and I could see that she, too, was feeling it. We didn't know what to do, so we simply dropped the stone back down and went inside. The stone circled around him once and then landed back in his hand. We were amazed and wanted to try it for ourselves. So the kids split into two teams, my team and the other team. Each team took a stone and arranged them into a circle. Then we each took a stone and started chanting, "Magic stone, show us your powers." And just like that, the stone began to float above our hands. We were so excited and kept raising the stone higher and higher until suddenly it began to glow brightly. Then it shot out of my hand like a rocket and landed in the center of the other team's circle. The kids on the other team screamed and scattered, but it was too late. The stone began to spin rapidly and then exploded, sending shards of rock flying in all directions. I closed my eyes tight, but when I opened them, I saw that one of the shards had cut open my palm. Blood trickled down my fingers, and when I looked at the other kids, they too had cuts all over their hands. Then we all looked down at the ground and saw that the pavement had been burned and scorched. We were terrified and ran away as fast as we could. As I ran, I thought about how much trouble we were going to be in when our parents found out what we had done. But then I heard a familiar voice behind me saying, "Lost children, lost children." I turned around and saw the old woman from the shack standing there with a staff in her hand. She looked at our cut hands and smiled. Then she dipped her staff into a pouch hanging from her belt and sprinkled a strange powder on our wounds. The cuts immediately began to heal, and within seconds they were gone. She told us that she wasn't going to tell our parents what had happened, but only if we promised to never touch a magic stone ever again. We agreed, and she disappeared into the shadows. And that's the end of the story. Or is it? Comment if you want part 2.